Hello and welcome to our Nourishing Insights podcast. And today is just so exciting because we are introducing the lovely Neleta Winter, who I'm delighted to say is now working for us as part of our Nourishing Insights team. So obviously Neleta is part of our clinical team, and some of you who follow us will have already seen her little blog post that we've already put out. If you haven't, then do have a look at the website for that. But we thought it'd be really nice just to get to know Neleta. And we will also have Livia on later in the week to just understand a bit more about them and how they go into nutritional therapy, so that you can get to know them a bit more. So we are going to start. So basically then, Neleta, how did you get into nutritional therapy?
Well, I've always had an interest in sort of food, but when I had my son, 12 years ago, he suffered very badly with eczema, really severely, and we had many trips to the doctors, not getting anywhere, being told there was nothing we could do, nothing to do with anything he ate, no imbalances, nothing like that. It was just steroid creams, antibiotics, lotions, creams. So we were literally at our wits' end. It was getting to a point that he wasn't sleeping, scratching really badly. So I did a lot of research because I really felt there must be something triggering it. It couldn't just be genetics. So I spent a lot of time looking into it. I'd gone to see a dietitian because obviously I'd at that point thought, was it dairy? So I took dairy out of his diet. So I went to see a dietitian and I'd been told by her that he was having too many vegetables. And at that point, I thought I wasn't getting the support that we needed. I just felt that it was just not the right information at all. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time really looking into it. And that's where my passion really grew, from sort of figuring out what was going on with him. So I really looked into then sort of pursuing it a little bit more, because I'd already done a degree in biology when I was a lot younger. And so I thought, okay, I can really use this. So I decided to go back and study. And that's where it all became really clear, how everything functions in the body and how it's not just one symptom and one cause. There's a lot of different things going on. So actually it really helped, not just obviously with my knowledge, but also helping my son as well. So now, thankfully, he hasn't got eczema. But it took a lot to get through there. You know, you hit a lot of brick walls when you speak to the NHS or a doctor, and you don't necessarily get the answers you want. So that really took me down that path. And it also made me want to sort of help other people. So it was nice that obviously I could help my son, and I saw results from what I was doing. And then obviously being able to help other people, not necessarily just with eczema, but obviously with other things as well. So it was really nice to be able to inspire people. So I have this big passion for cooking and for food. And I wanted to incorporate that in, because so many people are rushing about and, you know, buying instant meals, and it's, you know, such a high-paced, fast sort of lifestyle. And that actually it comes down to slowing down and enjoying the food, and how can we incorporate easy meals into a busy family that are still going to nourish us. So I ended up sort of doing that as well, incorporating that. So becoming a nutritional therapist and then doing sort of workshops for cooking. So I did that to inspire people. So it just led down a sort of path, and then I ended up working with restaurants and helping them produce sort of healthier meals and healthier menus. So it sort of followed on, which was really nice.
Lovely, lovely. And everyone who's in this game always has a story. All of the people I trained with, they all had a story. There was one GP actually who had MS. You know, there's people from all walks of life who end up studying nutritional therapy. And you know, some of you who followed me for a while will know a bit of my story, but just very briefly, my younger daughter, she had glandular fever, which went on to become chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. She had very severe migraine and was very, very ill indeed, and actually had 2 years out of school in the end. But, you know, we found our answers, very long story short, through nutritional therapy, same as yourself, Neleta. And I think that once you discover all of that, it's life-changing. There's literally no going back. And the other thing is it becomes so addictive. And as you say, it's once you've uncovered one thing and you think, oh my goodness, I didn't know no diet had any relevance to that, or a nutritional deficiency or whatever it might be. But you want to know more and more and more and more, and that just spurs you on to go and study. But also it makes you want to help everyone, because you want to shout it off the rooftops and you want to say to people, look, please don't waste your time doing that. You're not going to get anywhere. You're never going to improve. It's just, you go around in ever decreasing circles, and it's so frustrating for people. And one of the things that people often say to me when they come is, oh gosh, I wish I had met you 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever. And I'm sure you have that as well. Because when you don't know what you don't know, and then when you do, it's like, oh my goodness, if only I'd done this before. I've wasted so much time, and I've been to so many specialists, and I've taken so many medications, none of which have helped, or they might have helped a little bit, but they never provided the solution. And that's the thing, because with nutritional therapy, it's very much about root cause medicine and finding solutions, and that's where the fun is in our job, actually. So having said all that, what is your favorite thing? That's a really hard question, but what is your favorite thing about being a nutritional therapist?
I think it's definitely putting those puzzle pieces together, because the amount of clients that I have that come to me for one thing, and then actually when you look at the whole picture, there's a lot going on. It's not just, there's always a symptom, but there's always reasons why there's a symptom. We don't just have it. It's a bit like when you go to the doctor and you have low iron, what does the doctor do? Here you go, there's iron tablets.
That's right.
But why do we have low iron? There must be a reason. And then the effect it has, hormonal effects, those kind of things. So it's actually really nice to be able to put that picture together for a client and say, well, here we go. This is where we could be getting those imbalances. This is what might be happening. And then people are like, oh, yes, that does make sense, and I have been feeling that. And that sort of relates to how I'm feeling and my energy levels and, how my gut's working, and maybe things are a bit sluggish, and it sort of just all tallies up. And also inspiring people, when after a while they start getting into that, oh yeah, that's amazing, and I can eat this, and I can eat chocolate still, and I can do this, and I can still enjoy the food I like, but at the same time I can add this, and and I always say eating the rainbow, that's my big thing. And I said, you're not just eating to fuel your body, you're eating to nourish your body. And that includes eating to feed the soul. So when you look at your food, rather than it being a plate of bland beige food, all those wonderful colours that we could be adding in. And that's what's really amazing. And then I have clients and they'll send me pictures of, their dinner or their breakfast, and it's the excitement that they get from actually enjoying the food, and they know then that they're going to get results from it. And then they do get results and they feel great. Their energy levels are better. Their hormones are balanced. They've got a gut that's working in a way it should be, rather than it being, that they're not going as often. So it's really nice to see that.
That's right. No, it is. And it's I enjoy that part as well, because it is that initial biology lesson they get when they come and see us, because we're trying to explain it all for them and join the dots. And what often confuses people there, and it's interesting you mentioned the iron story, because it's such a common problem that people have iron deficiency, but then they're wondering why, because I eat meat 3 times a week or whatever, but they're really scratching their heads trying to work it out, but nobody's actually sat with them and talked about all the other possible reasons for lacking in iron. We won't go into that today, because we'll be here all day with that one. But the point is, there are many of them, and we have the time, the tools, the training to be able to do that, to provide those solutions, so that then, okay, now I know what the problem is, now I can work on that and find a way through that. And that's where it gets so exciting doing what we do, because they feel so empowered. And also with food, it's think about things they like to eat. I think that people think, oh, nutritional therapist, I don't need to see one of them because I eat a healthy diet. But nobody actually knows what a healthy diet is anymore. And there's so much misinformation. And also, diet, the word diet has always been for years about restriction. And so it's nice that you said that we're about including things. And often, even when I've got people on the elimination diet, which would be pretty common for various reasons, but it's more of an incorporation diet than it is an elimination, because you're actually including many foods that they maybe haven't explored before, or they're just not being part of their routine. And I think that's the thing. We want to bring that variety. And so the rainbow idea, it's about color and being inspired and bringing variety. And yes, you can have chocolate, but it has to be a special kind of chocolate. And there's chocolate and there's chocolate in this game. And I always say to people, it's about playing clever with food, so they know what's available to them, what would be good to have, and that, silly messages like fat does not make you fat. It's trying to eliminate all these awful, outdated views that have been part of the reason that we are in the mess we are in from a chronic health point of view. So it is a big picture on education. So yeah, that's really fun. And yeah, just getting people better, of course, turning that corner, whatever it is that they're bringing. And the other thing I think is fab actually is the fact that, they're used to going to the NHS where they're allowed one thing very often that they're allowed to talk about in that session. Yeah. And really, they're not even talking about the one thing because there's very limited time. So, they come to us with an entire shopping list, because if you haven't been before, then what happens is you fill in a very lengthy questionnaire, which will take you a good hour and a half, couple of hours to complete. That goes through your whole medical history from birth. It's exploring everything. So it's a no stone left unturned approach. So we read that before we even meet you, which is quite a big deal. And we do any extra research at that point if we need to, if anything unusual pops up. But we spend a huge amount of time, and we really do put our heart and soul into this job. And, once we're with you, we're on your team, and we're there to support you and coach you and get you through and explain the links between what's happened and why it's happened. And it's a huge privilege, I can't tell you, to do what we do. It really is incredible. So yeah, it was lovely to hear your examples there in the letter of how that all pieces together and how we bring those pieces to the jigsaw and just help people.
I think it's nice as well, because often when people go to the doctors, like you said, they have 10-minute appointment and that's it, and they're sort of then shuffled off. But they get an hour and a half with us, if they have a full an hour and a half to be able to talk and explain and really get things off their chest, because sometimes with symptoms, it isn't just a symptom. Sometimes there's something emotional behind it, because, if you're not feeling great, it's, work's going to be a struggle, family life's going to be a struggle, there's stress involved. So actually, how often do you get time to sit down and actually talk to somebody about how you really feel, how your body's working, how you want it to work, what you want to get out of it? So it's actually really nice, because those people then all of a sudden just let it all out, and it's actually quite a nice relief for them. And then obviously we're then working to support them.
Absolutely, you're right. And they all bring their whole complex stories with them, and it's that knock-on effect. If you've got people living in chronic pain and they're stressed because of the pain and because they can't find any relevant solutions, and then they can't sleep either because of the pain, and so it goes on. So you end up with people with multiple problems that have all just rooted from something else. But it again is, as you say, it's having that time to go through that with them and spend a lot of time explaining it all to them, but also that hour and a half, we get to encourage them as well and support them. And that's what we all need as humans. We all need that support. So yeah, it's a lovely part of the job, and the service that we're able to offer is just wonderful.
Yeah.
So obviously in the work we train in everything, as you do. But life is life, and sometimes things come along that end up becoming areas of special interest. So what sort of things have popped up for you?
I think, obviously, I'm not one to specialise. I think it's really important to have a good broad spectrum. I see lots of different clients from sort of all walks of life, lots of different symptoms and lots of different causes. I do love to work with children, because I think when you're working with children, you're actually working with the whole family, because you're having to implement different things, obviously, depending on what the issue is or the symptoms are. You're having to adapt their their sort of what they're eating, their lifestyle, that kind of thing, and incorporating that as a whole family rather than just one individual person, which you normally would when you're seeing clients. So that's really nice, because actually when you're working with the family and you're incorporating, you've got to inspire the child, because how many children just sit there and they're like, oh God, yeah, I've got to eat this and this.
Yeah.
But actually inspiring them to really enjoy it, make it fun, make it creative for them so that they find it enjoyable, rather than it just being the mum or dad cooking the meals and they just eat it. So that's the fun part, working with children. I found obviously working with children a lot because I've got my own son, and obviously working and helping him while he was a child really sort of impacted on that. But then working with women's hormones as well, because unfortunately that's across the board really. I mean, there's probably not many women that don't suffer from some kind of hormonal imbalance throughout their life. So actually you find it, even if a lady comes to me and it's for something completely different, when you look down sort of down the river, you see that actually, hang on a second, that's not quite right, and you know, that doesn't seem right. And actually when you're working through it, there's probably a lot going on, you know, especially big thing about working with the liver. And people just forget about the liver. There's so much emphasis on the gut at the moment, you know, lots about the gut, and that is very important. And then people forget about the liver. And that's actually a big fundamental part of especially women's hormones as well, you know, when we want to clear out those excess hormones. So making sure that obviously women understand that when we're looking at our hormones, it's multifactorial. We've got to look at all different areas: stress, the food we eat, you know, the toxins around us, how our gut's functioning, how our liver's functioning. So working with sort of that is, I really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, no, I do. And I think that women's hormones is a great opportunity to really visit all the aspects of functional medicine, all the stuff that we're trained in as you go around, or literally all the body systems, because it all comes together with hormones. And it's funny because people think that certain things are normal when it comes to hormones, because it's all about what they're used to. And you know, it's what's become normal for us in the Western world, because our society is a disaster when it comes to hormones, an absolute disaster. We set up the perfect storm, and the examples you gave there of the environment and food and stress and all these things, you know, they all lead to problems with hormones, but it's all very much a product of modern living. And so as a result of that, we've got a shift in people's perspective of what's normal and what isn't. And because we're used to having hormonal problems, and that they're just everywhere now. You know, it's all just a bit of a spectrum as to where you fall hormonally, because we all have hormones. We all live day to day with our hormones every day, and we can either support that positively or negatively by the choices we make. But of course, people don't know that their diet and lifestyle makes a difference to these sorts of things. And when then they learn about that and understand the relevance that their constipation is having to their night sweats or whatever, it's life-changing. It's so empowering when people understand all of that. So that's great. And I love working with hormonal stuff too, of course. And
I like that, you know, obviously when they fill out the form, there is a section on sort of PMS, you know, PMS symptoms. Yeah. And women just live with it. They go, oh, well, it's just the time of the month. I know I'm going to get hormonal, and I'm going to get moody, and I'm going to get the cramps, and I'll just take ibuprofen because that will sort it out. But we shouldn't have to, because that's our body's way. This is the thing. Symptoms is our body's way of saying, hang on a second, there's something not quite right. Let's try and figure it out, you know. So we need to find what's going on, find out why you're getting these, and there's lots we can do. You know, it's not about just popping a multi-nutrient every month and hope for the best. It's about looking at really what is causing those issues and how we can resolve that, how we can support it, how can we support those hormones.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one of the lovely things about working with children actually is the fact that you get to sort out a lot of problems before they get worse. You can see these accidents waiting to happen in children, and the earlier we start working with them and educating families as a whole on nutrition, the better, because they would have a terrible time going through hormones. I've worked with a few children recently that I thought, oh my goodness, once they hit 12 and 13, if they hadn't have met me, if they hadn't have gone on this journey early on, they would have had a miserable time, because you could see where the train was headed. Yeah. And I had horrendous times as a teenager with very, very painful, horrendous dysmenorrhea, very, very frightening. It was like going into labor every month. It was horrific. But again, no real answers to that. Whereas if I'd known then what I know now, I wouldn't have had all those problems. I wouldn't have lived with that and seen it as just bad luck. It wasn't bad luck, and again, won't go into that story, but there were reasons why. I can see dietary wise immediately that connection. I always had gut problems, always had issues with IBS, and severe dysmenorrhea and IBS, they go together. We see those things very commonly for lots of reasons, but nobody was able to make that connection for me. I just plodded on and suffered and lived with it, as you say, and that's what people do, which is just too sad,
And a lot I find as well with children and even adults, that when you look at their sort of what they eat on a regular basis, there is a lot of sugar. And people don't realise the impact it has. And I always say to people that we're not born to crave sugar. It's a institutional sort of process that happens, through the food we eat, through the sort of advertising we have, through schools, through everything else. So actually, let's look at how we can improve that, because our body's not craving it because it wants it, it's craving it because it's lacking something else. So let's see where we can adjust that. And it's just about making those adjustments, but without saying, okay, you can't have this, you can't have that. It's about, let's see how we can include these nourishing foods and still enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. Back to playing clever, and that's what we're able to do. But we wouldn't have been able to do this, either of us, years ago, if we hadn't have trained in all this. And that's the thing. I would have eaten the typical Western diet. I was brought up on cereals and toast for breakfast and sandwiches for lunch, and would have had a good dinner. And I think that's the thing, a lot of families do have a reasonable dinner, that they cook from scratch, but then the breakfast and lunch is where people fall down. But it's understanding, though, that foods can be healthy in inverted commas, but not healthy for you, because maybe you're not tolerating a certain food, or maybe you're not digesting it, or whatever. So we have to make adjustments all the time and try and tailor it to suit what's required at that time. But that is what makes the job so interesting and also rewarding. And and I'm with you on the special interest thing, because there are nutritionists out there who specialize in one thing, but it's impossible to do that, because you're always covering the entire shopping list when people come along anyway. Irrespective of your chosen field. And so I quite like to just keep it open, that we welcome all kinds of problems. We work with, obviously, the full range of hormonal, as you said, autoimmune problems. Fertility is a big part of our work, which again is very, very rewarding. Working with children is just lovely. And not all nutritional therapists do work with children. So I'm delighted that Neleta does, because that's an important part of our work. And as a clinic, we love working with children. And of course, we work with them from babies onwards. So it's great to have Neleta's enthusiasm and passion for working with families as part of the team is just great. So can you give us an example of one of your most transformational client cases?
Yes. See, I have one that really stands out for me. I had a lady come to me, and she was overweight. She had tried all of the diets. She'd been to Weight Watchers. She'd been counting calories. It got to a point that she was eating separate meals from her family. So she was married, had children, and she was really struggling. She was finding it miserable. She was low energy. She'd been to the doctors and been diagnosed with, she's pre-diabetic. She'd been given 2 pamphlets, foldable pamphlets, and sort of told to go on her way. And then she tried to do some research, but there's so much conflicting information on the internet. You know, there's so many diets out there. One week you're told to eat fats, the next week you're told, no, don't eat fats because they make you fat. And she was just really struggling, and she just didn't know where to go. So she contacted me, and so we started off, I always say, our journey together, because she had we worked together over a sort of a longer period of time. And we just stripped it down. You know, we looked at what was actually going on with her body, and there was a lot going on. You know, she was stressed. She wasn't eating the right foods for her. She was putting more pressure on herself. You know, she wasn't enjoying life, and which made it very difficult for anything to work properly within the body. So we really did strip it down. We really worked together, and we tried to make sure that it was fun and balanced. So it wasn't, and I said to her from the very beginning, I said, it's not about restrictions. And that's what a lot of these diets are. You know, when you look at these diets you see on the internet, you look at them and it is about taking out whole food group or several food groups, which isn't sustainable. You can't do that over a longer period of time. So it really was about making sure that we were including those nourishing foods, because when we talk about weight management, it's not about trying to lose as much weight as possible. What it is about managing your weight to a suitable level for you by incorporating the good foods. And that's what we did. And we get lots of recipes, lots of new ideas that made sure that the whole family were involved. So they were all eating together. So it wasn't her eating her own separate meal and the rest of the family eating something else. And then the kids got involved with the cooking and the preparation as well. So it became a whole family thing. And at the end of it, she ended up losing a bit of weight, which made her feel great. She had more energy, which was actually the most important thing. So she was more, at the end of it, obviously at the beginning, it was more the weight and the pre-diabetic situation. But by the end of it, it was the fact that she didn't feel that there was any restrictions with food. She found a real happy balance. She had more energy. She was exercising again. She was enjoying things. And the transformation was amazing, because I remember the last time I saw her, she was so happy. It was a completely different glow to her, which was amazing. And I think as well, when you start to form these balance within sort of your life, whether that's stress, eating, anything else, it has a knock-on effect. So her hormones were balancing out, because if you're restricting yourself with certain foods, then you're not getting everything you need. So she got to a point that she felt she didn't have any worries. You know, before she would worry if there was food about, because she'd feel that she had to have a dessert, and then she would feel guilty if she ate it. And it came to getting into that balance again. You know, there shouldn't be guilt around food, but let's look at how we can incorporate better choices. So, you know, when we're looking at pastas and rice and flour and stuff like that, let's look at the whole grain options. So it doesn't mean you can't have something. What we'll do is we'll do some healthy swaps, add in some nourishing grains. You know, we're looking at things like quinoa, buckwheat, those kind of things, eating the rainbow, making sure that you do have chocolate, but let's look at the 85% or higher, or raw cacao. So you could still have chocolate porridge in the morning if you wanted it. So she really enjoyed that aspect of it, that it was all part of having fun, enjoying it. And the fact that all of the family were getting involved was really nice.
Yeah, it's lovely, and it's nice to inspire people and show them that fat doesn't make fat, and they can have these things. And actually, with carbs, again, it's like there's chocolate and there's chocolate, there's carbs and there's carbs, and there's fats and there's fats, and it's showing them the way to the good ones. And then once they know they can incorporate all of the good stuff into their diet, then they have much more diverse foods, more nourishment. But it's explaining that, you know, we need to communicate with food to ourselves and support our natural physiology, because our body knows miraculously what to do, and it is a miracle of nature when you think about it. But it does need information to help it along, and that's what the lovely foods do. And it's funny when people come into our store actually in Aberdeen, because they'll pick up the bags of the raw cacao, and you can see them looking for the sugar on the back. That's what they're looking for, because they're convinced there is sugar in it, because the word cacao is on the top, and this is synonymous with chocolate and sugar and bad stuff. And so they're looking for some kind of sugar or sweetener, and I'll say, no, it's just cacao. And then they actually say, but well, how much sugar is in it? And I say, no, it is 100% cacao. That's all that's in it. So yeah, people get really confused, and but it is another fun part of the job, that you can direct them to lots of good fats and explain that, you know, nobody gets fat eating a pumpkin seed. It just doesn't happen. It's all the bad fats and the you know, we don't like using that word, but we just want to focus on the good stuff. That's really what we're about. And it's about understanding, you know, nobody in tribal communities has diabetes, and there's a reason for that. You know, it's to do with, again, we're back to modern living. You know, they don't have the same hormonal problems. They're not having night sweats in tribal communities the way that we are. And it's back to the effects of modern living and all these things. So yeah, all exciting stuff. And that's a lovely example, a lovely case. And as you say, another thing I've noticed is that people, once one thing gets better, it's all aspects of their lives, because when we change our diet and our lifestyle, it impacts everything. You know, we're talking about our stress and our sleep and our energy levels hugely, because people don't make that connection with food and blood sugar and mood. And energy levels, because if the blood sugar is going up and down throughout the day, then, you know, we are going to end up with mood swings and irritability and fatigue and all these problems that we wouldn't otherwise have. And so, you know, even after a few days of changing over and managing blood sugar, people are amazed, gobsmacked, that actually that they're much calmer and they're feeling more energy and they're not as irritable as they were, and they're not having that 3 o'clock slump in the afternoon anymore, and all of these things that, you know, all of us can just take for granted until we find a way through this. You know, and I can remember feeling like that years ago before I knew all this stuff. But it's, you know, it's easy for us now because we know the tricks of the trade. We know how to make it work. But for, you know, the poor souls who come to us who don't know, and who also then, you know, are thinking, but I eat a healthy diet, I'm confused, I feel so terrible, but I know I eat a healthy diet. Well, actually, do you? And most of us don't. I certainly didn't eat well according to you know, the way that I eat now and the way that I learned. But I've always cooked my own food. But then those processed foods sneak in, don't they? Because most homes have a biscuit tin in the house, and they have you know, stuff that you can buy, and things have changed to when I was little, and the biscuit tin, you know, in the 60s was something kept on top of a cupboard. It wasn't something that you had access to, whereas now these things are much everywhere. Cheaper. Yeah, it's all just available, and the same with alcohol now. Again, that stuff, you know, you had for special occasions when I grew up, whereas now it's just so easy to put in a $3.99 bottle of wine into the trolley without thinking about it. And so people are having, habits have changed, you know, behaviors have changed. We've got processed food, we've got access to sugary things, we've got alcohol, all these things. And also the so-called healthy market. Now, what I always say to people is, don't buy anything in the supermarket that has the words low fat, low sugar, or healthy written on it. Yeah. Don't buy anything. Don't buy anything that says healthy, because it isn't. Because healthy food doesn't come with a label. That's the bottom line. And broccoli does not have the word healthy or low fat or low sugar written on it. It's just a bit of broccoli. Yeah. And it's making that connection, because marketing is just so effective. And, you know, we're all suckers for the latest con. And I would have picked up things like that, you know, 20 years ago as well, and bought low sugar drinks for my kids, and think, oh, I cringe now at the things I used to buy that I thought were healthy. I think, oh my goodness, I surely didn't buy that junk, but I didn't know. And it's such a privilege to have this knowledge, but wonderful to share it with others, and then we can have these transformational cases. And and it's, again, I'm sure with your lady, I bet she was really surprised that she was able to do it a lot easier than she maybe thought.
Yes, because she had tried to lose weight before. She had tried lots of different diets, and that's the problem. I think when something isn't sustainable over a longer period of time, it becomes very difficult to stick to. It's restrictive. It's an imbalance. It causes more stress, because if you're being told don't eat something and then you eat it, then you put more stress on yourself because you feel like you failed. So there was a lot of negativity around these diets, and they're not, well, obviously, eventually, if you're taking out a whole food group, you're going to find imbalances eventually on your hormones, gut health, anything else. So I think as well, when she felt that food freedom, that's where it really played a big part, you know, as she started to realize that it's not about taking things out, it's about working on what we can be adding in. You know, we're in a society where we don't eat for nourishment. What we eat for is abundance. You know, we have everything at our fingertips, you know, convenience foods, sugary foods, foods on the go. Like you said, low fat, low sugar. It's all there. But actually, we're not focusing on what's nourishing us. What we're focusing on is something we can eat really quickly and on the go, or something that's just going to be popped into a microwave. And one thing I always do on my workshops is I talk to the all of the people there is about digestion, and people just assume digestion starts when we've eaten the food and the food's in our stomach. But it doesn't. It starts as soon as we start prepping that food. You know, it's called the cephalic phase, where our saliva starts to sort of be produced, and then our enzymes in our mouth start to work. And as soon as our food, you know, when we're tasting the food as we're cooking it, and then we sit down, how many families sit there with the TV on or on their mobile phones, and you're not even connecting with that food you're eating. So that whole part is being bypassed. So really, you're not even starting off your digestion process when you should be.
That's right.
So you're lacking a lot of that connection. And I always talk a lot to people about, let's sit down, let's enjoy the food, prepare the food from scratch, using just whole ingredients. You know, it's not about finding 20 different things, you know, broccoli, some cauliflower, some carrot, you know, lots of different colours on there, and making sure that it's enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know. And it needn't be as difficult as people think. I think that's the important message that we want to give, that I have so many people who say, oh my goodness, I really didn't believe you when you said, you know, I explained about blood sugar regulation, because when you've cracked that, the world's your oyster. It literally is, because you're not possessed by this devil of blood sugar imbalance anymore. You can get on and have a normal life and make better choices, and you know, have stuff with you in your handbag just to keep you going if you do feel hungry or whatever. But it's knowing what you can have and what's going to work, what's going to do the trick. So all good fun. So I'm going to ask you a question now, which is a difficult one for a nutritional therapist, difficult one for anyone. What is your favourite food? You're allowed more than one if you really struggle.
Well, there's going to be everything, because I love food. I mean, I really do. And that's probably one of the big things that I got into nutritional therapy, is that because I love food so much, I want to just share that there's so much you can do with a broccoli or a beetroot, or, you know, some chocolate that isn't, you know, chocolate brownies all the time, you know, making lots of different foods fun. So that's why I just love all food. But favourite foods, I love beetroot. It's like my favourite. Well, I say that, but I love broccoli as well, and I love avocados, and I love chocolate. So chocolate does make its way into most meals, but I go for the nice raw cacao, or 85% or more. I love all different things. I love leafy greens, love everything.
Yeah.
Hummus, falafel, lots of different things. Good.
I know. It's funny, because when you understand food and you understand literally what every single nutrient is doing inside your body, it's quite awe-inspiring, and it's quite emotional, actually. There were times when I was studying the course that I would just look at the slides on the screen and think, oh my goodness, that is amazing. You know, the body just knows how to do that. It's quite phenomenal. And that's why you need the variety of foods, because they're each speaking to different cells, they're each doing different jobs, and it's lovely to think that we have an abundance of these things available to us, and that we can support our bodies and nourish our bodies. And it's sad, because for years, decades now, it's been all about taking stuff out and, you know, removing, especially the fat thing, which went on for literally decades. It's just ridiculous and very, very sad, because people's lives have been ruined by it, and we've literally ended up with so much chronic ill health and diabetes as a result of processed food eating, and lack of the good stuff, the real fats. And, you know, when we do the maths and we look 100 years ago and we look at photographs, I always say, look at photographs out of the loft of old pictures and think, well, how many people in those photographs of our great-great-grandparents were overweight, obese, and looking very inflammatory, looking ill. They all look quite well. They all ate real food that was cooked from scratch, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, everything they did. And they still baked, but what they baked was butter, sugar, eggs, and flour, not the 20 ingredients that you can't pronounce in a cake in the supermarket.
Yes.
And it's just thinking about how lifestyles have changed. But, when we're able to eat and nourish ourselves from the whole of what nature has to offer, really. We can find those answers in nature to all sorts of problems. And in our game, of course, we talk a lot about herbal medicine as well. And of course, those herbs are available as food. And it's great to add, some coriander into your salad or whatever, because people think, oh, that's just for your curry or whatever. But no, stick it in your salad, add it in your smoothie. It's using foods and just dotting things about that you wouldn't have done otherwise. I mean, I never was brought up with, adding coriander into a salad. Nobody would have ever done that. But, since doing all this training and learning about foods and how to combine foods, I do that now regularly and love it.
Yeah. And it's being clever with the food as well, and that's the thing. It's, you see these smoothies, for instance, in the supermarket, and it is apple juice, orange juice, some more juice, and then that's it. And so people are going, oh, yeah, but I have a smoothie. But that's not it's not whole food. It's not good for your blood sugar levels. It's definitely not good for your gut health. So it has this knock-on effect. So actually, let's look at how we can make it a bit more nourishing. So making it at home, let's add in lots of vegetables in there. And then we can add in a little bit of fruit. And then maybe add in some herbs, some spices, some ginger, some turmeric, that kind of thing. And actually making it really fun. And that's the thing. And it's all about being clever with these ingredients. And I think education's such a big thing. Knowledge is power. And like you said, knowing what these things do for your body. So, for instance, when I'm making breakfast for me and my son, I'll be talking, putting in beetroot here because it's packed full of inorganic nitrates. It's going to help with oxygen around your body that go to your muscles because he's really into sport and running. And then we'll do the cacao, and that's really good, packed full of magnesium. So that's really good for sort of your blood sugar levels as well, but for your mood. And it's about sort of talking about these things when we're eating. There's a reason why we're eating it, because it's going to nourish our body. It's going to help different, like you said, it speaks to every cell within the body, but they all have different functions. So actually making sure we have that whole rainbow will make sure we're speaking to every bit of the body.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got one final question, which is, if you could eat, this is a tricky one, it's really hard. If you could eat only one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That's difficult because I love all food. So I wake up every morning really excited for my breakfast because I love breakfast because it sets you up for the day. I have so many clients that don't eat breakfast. And then they have 5 cups of coffee because they say they don't need to eat anything, but obviously they need it for energy. So they do need the food. So I always say breakfast is probably one of the most important meals, except for lunch and dinner as well. So it's probably breakfast. I love to make a vegetable packed smoothie bowl. And then I put a lovely homemade oat granola with lots of nuts and seeds. So lots of healthy fats, protein in there. And lots of delicious berries. So we like to go foraging in autumn for blackberries. Probably that. But then I also love a good vegetable packed rainbow sort of nourishing bowl with lots of grains in there like quinoa or buckwheat. And then sometimes I like to add in some oily fish in there as well because it's just so good for you. So it'd be a bit difficult, either one of those.
Yeah, exactly. I love breakfast as well, I must say. I look forward to it. I enjoy it. And I love knowing that I can eat all the nuts and seeds and things now without worrying, and have my fruit in there, my antioxidants coming in, my good fats, and just that nice feeling of being beautifully nourished first thing in the morning to start your day is a lovely thing. If I had to pick a meal for the rest of my life, I don't know, actually, I might even pick that. I quite like that. When I first think about questions like this, I always think about roast dinner because I think about warmth and comfort food and childhood memories and all of that. And I think, roast beef and Yorkshire pudding and loads of veg. But I mean, I loved all the veg. I suppose I was unusual as a child because I did love my greens. Even then, I always liked,
Yes.
I was always a good eater, and I loved my Savoy cabbage and my sprouts and all the things that a lot of kids would turn their nose up at. But I've always eaten tons of those things, and love them. And I absolutely love anything green. Love doing things with cabbages. Love making quiche out of cabbage, using cabbage leaves instead of pastry. So there's lots of fun things you can do. But yeah, I think it's nice to have that association with food in a positive way, and lots of nice memories. And because food is for the soul. You mentioned that earlier, but it really does nourish the soul. It's not just about the body and the cells and the physiology. It is actually a wonderful soulful thing to do. And of course, it's about community as well. And that's why the Mediterranean diet is so good, because they bring everyone together. And so it's lovely. It really is. But anyway, that brings us to the end of our podcast. So hope that you've enjoyed it, everyone. What I should have said before actually is that Neleta didn't tell you, she's also a fantastic food photographer. She is a professional food photographer. She didn't mention that, but she is. And if you look on her, what is your Instagram if they want to see some really beautiful stuff?
Oh, thank you. It's Nourish Flourish Nutrition.
There you go. Very appropriate name, Nourish Flourish Nutrition. So if you want to see some really fancy, very professional pictures, unlike ours, which are not professional at all, then have a look at Neleta's, because she puts things together just beautifully, and it hopefully will inspire you lots of colourful ideas and tricks of the trade to try and incorporate as many lovely things as possible. And if you would like to learn a bit more about Neleta, you can have a look at our website, read her blog. And you can book an appointment with her as well, for you or your children, and hopefully be one of those lucky people, those very privileged people who learn about what we do and grow in health with us, and hopefully be inspired long into the future. So thank you, Neleta, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Nourishing Insights podcast. We do hope you've enjoyed it, and if you'd like to follow us, you will find us on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. You will also find our website at nourishinginsights.com. Look forward to seeing you next time, and in the meantime, stay nourished and let food be your medicine.